Welcome to Long Story Short, a series where big historical events and themes are explained in a concise way that does not sacrifice facts or analysis. In today's episode, we are covering the Great Fire of London, one of the defining events of the city's history, because of the way it quite literally reshaped the landscape in a permanent way. The year is 1666. Charles II is on the throne of England, but the civil war and Oliver Cromwell still remain in people's memory, with it only being 6 years since the monarchy was restored. London had barely recovered from the Great Plague epidemic, which ravaged the city. Furthermore, the hot summer of 1666 primed the city for its own destruction, not only drying out the wooden structures with thatched roofs, which London was entirely comprised of, but also caused droughts, something which would later affect the ability to control the fire, essentially making London a tinderbox ready to burn. Thomas Fariner, a royal baker who made hardtack for the navy, went to bed believing that all was ordinary. However, in the early hours of the 2nd of September, in Fariner's bakery on Pudding Lane, the spark that quite literally began the blaze appeared. The fire is said to have originated in one of Fariner's ovens. These ovens, as was typical then, was fueled by wood. It is believed that Fariner did not put out his oven by raking the coals properly the evening before, which caused the bakery to catch alight. One of his employees, Thomas Dagger, is said to have spotted the fire first, and awoke his employer and Fariner's family. Dagger, Fariner, and the rest of the household managed to escape the burning building, but a maid was left behind, not wanting to chance the journey down to the ground. She unfortunately died. Over the course of the next few hours, the fire would spread from Fariner's bakery down the rest of Pudding Lane. The fire that would consume London had begun. The Lord Mayor of London, Sir Thomas Bloodworth, was informed that the fire had broken out, and he was brought to the scene to give authorization to the efforts to control the blaze. Bloodworth, however, thought that the blaze was being over-exaggerated. Instead of offering a solution, Bloodworth remarked that the fire could just be put out by a woman urinating over it. He then returned to his house. This lack of action in response to the fire can be seen as pivotal in its spread, because Bloodworth blocked efforts to pull down the buildings in the radius of Pudding Lane, which worsened the fire, giving it the power to fan out further. This mismanagement of the fire was further worsened by strong winds and contact which the fire made to a building full of hay and other highly flammable materials. On a single day, it was said that the fire travelled half a mile. On the second day, the fire did not slow down, but spread further, which forced the king to take the matter of organising firefighting into his own hands. This was done by creating 8 fire posts throughout the city, such as at Temple Bar and at Cripplegate, in order to monitor efforts of putting out the fire. Alongside this, foot soldiers were provided to further aid the locals in putting out the fire and to maintain some sense of order. But this really had little effect, as the fire still spread, and panic broke out amongst Londoners, which turned to rioting and looting. Many interpreted the date of the fire not as a coincidence. The year of 1666 was deemed by many to be the so-called Year of the Beast, as was detailed in the Book of Revelations. This beast had the ability to apparently conjure fire, and was associated with the number 666. This was inflamed by many mystics who claimed to have predicted the fire. Hence, many saw the Great Fire of London as a hellish event, which was a sign of damnation. Or as recorded by Samuel Pepys in his diary, as it grew darker, the fire appeared more and more, as far as we could see up the hill of the city, in the most horrid, malicious, bloody flame. It made me weep to see it, the churches, houses, and all on fire. The fire continued to destroy London for a third day at a vicious and fast pace, which caused most people to make the decision to abandon their homes and flee. Some people had advanced warning about the fire, so had the time to gather their possessions and arrange for them to be taken away from the city. But for others, the fire was fast approaching, so there was little time to save more than their own lives. People escaped the burning London in various ways, by the roads, either on horse, cart, or foot. The Thames provided a water route out of the city, which many seized, especially those who transported hefty amounts of cargo or personal possessions, which was ever more important considering that by this point the fire had surpassed the city walls and destroyed sites such as St. Paul's Cathedral. By the fourth day, the fire still raged, but the high winds slowed down, which helped to ease the fire's spread. Various techniques were used by the people of London to stop the fire, the most obvious being to douse the fire with water. This was done through the use of buckets, water squirts, and water pumps. The fire was also stopped by creating fire breaks, where whole streets were cleared of buildings, thus taking away the tinder needed for the fire to keep on going. At first, this was done by hand, but in the later days of the fire, gunpowder was used to quickly dismantle structures. This eased the fire, so it eventually halted by the end of the fourth day, which allowed for rubble to be removed and the grueling process of rebuilding to begin. Reports detail that 6 people had died over the course of the fire. It is also estimated that as many as 100,000 people were made homeless. But the human impact of the Great Fire is hard to measure because of the deep emotional impact that witnessing the fire had on the people of London, who had to live with the trauma of it for years to come. In the 5 days that it raged, the fire had destroyed around 1/3 of what was then London, with most of its destruction in the city's heartland, where the commercial and financial districts such as Cheapside were located. Additionally, in the fire, many important buildings were lost, such as the Royal Exchange and St. Paul's Cathedral. After the rubble and debris had been removed, the process of rebuilding took place, but determined to avoid another catastrophe, an act for rebuilding the City of London was passed in the February of 1667 to deploy the builders of the city, but also to outline new building safety rules to avoid the cramped conditions which enabled the fire's spread in the first place. In the process of reconstructing London, many buildings were fashioned based on the designs of Sir Christopher Wren, whose work was used especially for churches, such as St. Paul's Cathedral and St. Mary le Bow. A new London emerged from the Great Fire of London, a city that was scarred from the memories of the blaze it had endured, but a city which was remoulded into something more resilient and recognisable today. Hi there, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, please consider liking and subscribing. I also have an Instagram and a TikTok page which I have linked below. Again, thank you so much for watching. I have been Our Historia, and until next time.